Hey, what's up? My name is Eric Harrison. Thank you for watching this week's Feature Friday video. We're going to do a feature showdown between two different features that are available in the Nintex platform to give you some more in-depth understanding of how to set them up, which ones to use, and how to configure those actions to get the most out of your workflow process. So really excited to bring that to you, and I'm glad that you're here watching the video. So stay tuned and let's get started. All right, so here's the feature showdown. We're talking about the Express approval and the assign a task action. The Express approval has been around for a while in all of our products, or in each platform: SharePoint On-Prem, SharePoint Office 365, SharePoint Online, and then also in Workflow Cloud. We've had the concept of a task approval action, something that you can assign a task, and that's called the Express approval. We also have the assign a task. So let's go through the Express approval. That was been there. It's a lot more rich in terms of what you can do with it, in terms of how you will use it. So let's get into that one. So first thing with Express approval is that it gives you the ability to assign a task to someone that they have to respond to. Get this, they have to respond to the task. With the response, we have the task name, the task description. We also have the message body, the subject and message body, but we also have outcomes. And the Express approval comes with, it has to have 2 or more, but at least 2 outcomes, and you can have attachments, 1 or more attachments that you can assign or send out with that task. And it's really simple, but let's get into it a little bit more to understand what is the Express approval and why would you use it. So you have the task name and task description. If you're filling this out, you want to be very descriptive on it. You want to actually give them the information they need to understand what is it they're using. Also, notice with the task that when you fill it out, that the task is something they can go into their task and actually look at it. So you want to be as descriptive there as possible. You can use variables inside of the task name and the task description, as well as in the subject and the message body, to create a more dynamic feel so you don't have to hard code everything in there. You can also use a variable to input the username or the assignee, and that's something that gives you, again, the richness of being able to make this dynamic so that you don't have to hard code an email address in there or a name for a user, for example. So with that, so the Express approval task action gives you that ability, again, to assign the task name and the description, putting the subject in there. You can put variables in there as well, again, making it dynamic so your content is relevant to what they need to do so they understand how to use it. And then the message body, you can put in variables and other content. You can also open it up and put in hyperlinks in there as well if you need to send out information or something for them to reference. With the file attachments, the Express approval supports 1 and or more file attachments. You can use a collection of attachments or send a single attachment to the user, and they will get that in the email just like someone sending and attaching a document to the email. The really cool thing about this is that outcomes, you have approve or reject or default, but you can actually create more than one outcome, or multiple outcomes rather, so that the user can approve, reject, maybe resubmit. They could have deny. You can change those as you need it. You can create multiple branches, but just remember, keep the logic simple to something you want the user to do and understand what they need to respond to. Hey, did you know that with the Nintex Workflow Cloud Express approval action, you can actually have the user resubmit an attachment and upload that either to EFSS or OneDrive, or Box, or Dropbox, or SharePoint, or Salesforce, or you can store that into a system of record and use that somewhere else within your workflow? It's a really cool functionality. So if I actually send you an Express approval with an attachment, say a Word document, and you want to review the document, redline it, put some edits in there, you as a user could actually resubmit that via your email with your, like, say I reject, and here see the attachment. That will be picked up and that will actually be sent via the workflow to either the user or to another system automatically. So really good functionality there that allows you to, again, continue to maximize what your users are doing and get them to be productive without having to stop and do something different. They can review the task, review the document, reply to the email, and attach the document back to the email. And that gives them the ability to keep going about their way, but knowing that the process is continuing as it's designed. All right, so with the Express approval, you get the ability to configure it, you have the actions. One of the things that I did a Feature Friday video on this called task escalations or task expirations. It's something that you will need to know. Within a task, you want to actually have something happen after a period of time, or else the task is sit there for forever. Task expirations gives you the ability to expire the task at a specific time. So whether it's a number of days, hours, weeks, months, it doesn't go for multiple years, and the reason for that is just you don't want something just sitting out there that long. Why would you have a task that is a year annually done? No, you want to actually do something, you can schedule something work better than that. So with the task, you want to actually have the ability for them to expire it. And what I mean by that, or escalate the task, meaning that when something doesn't happen in a period of time, say 3 days, escalate it to a particular user or a particular manager or a different person. And that way the task can at least be completed. Or you can default and have the task actually default to a particular outcome, and then that outcome carries on a specific amount of logic that's defined inside of the workflow. These are all things that are available inside of the Express approval action, and it gives you the ability to, again, drive user interaction with the process to get the user to say, hey, I want to do this, or I need to do that, and they decide whatever the branches are that you put, whatever your outcomes are, the user decides one of those outcomes, and then the workflow continues along the way with your process logic accordingly. With that, the Express approval action becomes really useful, a useful tool in business logic and how you want to communicate and execute things, whether it be approving data in other systems or information like that. The user doesn't have to have access to those systems. You can create a task from a system and then actually send the user that information to say, hey, respond to this, and then the workflow could update the system. So something to take note there when using the Express approval. The assign a task action is very similar, but it achieves a little different of a goal or objective when it comes to workflow logic. And we'll get into that right quickly. All right, so the assign a task action. The assign a task action is fairly straightforward in what it does. You're assigning a task to someone and you want them to simply complete it. So the difference between that and an approval is simply an approval requires a response. The task requires a completion. So when the user completes a task, simply say done, then the workflow will continue on. It's a way to kind of pause the logic to get someone to interact with something, and they may need to do something outside of the system, outside of the workflow or outside of the process, and then come back and say, yes, done. Not necessarily a response such as I approve or reject, do this, but more of, yep, I did that step, I activated that user, I created that account, or I've assigned that computer to that person, and then I'm going to continue on. And you see these examples all throughout a lot of business processes where someone's assigned a task, like in IT, to create a new user when you've hired a new employee, or when you have HR where they need to actually go and collect information for people because of flu shots. They are assigned a task, they do that task, and then they simply hit done. The construct of the task action is very similar. You have a task name, description, a subject, message body. You have the assignee email address, you have the sender's display name, and you can also send file attachments. The outcomes is where it differs a little bit. There is only one outcome, done. You can change that to be completed or whatever, but that's generally just the one outcome that you have there because it's a task that's being assigned. You're not asking them for something, you're asking them to do something. And then you can also do the expiration as well. We mentioned that a little bit earlier. So with the assign a task, remember that you cannot do multiple branching with assign a task because there's only one outcome that to be had from a task. Either you did it or you didn't, right? With the Express approval, you can do two or more branches, and that's the differentiation there. So let's get into now the why you would use this and how it actually works for your business process. All right, so the assign a task and the Express approval. We went through how to configure both actions and how to use them, but why would you want to use them? Well, I actually saw this recently with one of our VP of sales. We were in a meeting and someone came by and was like, hey, I need you to sign off on something. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I actually watched him. He opened up his inbox, reviewed an email, and at the bottom, he actually had approve, reject, reassign. And it was really interesting to see it. He simply looked at it, he reviewed the information in the email, he clicked on an attachment, and then he simply replied back, I approve of this order. He was doing an order quote for a customer. Really simple, and that kicked off the process. The guy was back at his desk doing something different, and it was amazing to see that in action in a real life scenario. I mean, I've seen him before, but to see it at that point in time, I mean, he literally did something within a matter of 20 seconds that is just, it was just awesome to see, right? So why would you want to use this? Well, if you have something, again, we went over the idea of a new employee being onboarded, and we want to assign them, create a new account for them. We want to give them a username and password, make sure they have a mobile phone, maybe a computer, a laptop, and or get their desk. We want to assign those tasks to someone, but we also need to get their compensation approved so that they have the right rate for commissions, etc. If they're a salesperson, as an example. So we need an approval, and we need a set of tasks done. The approval will go out to the VP or whoever their manager is and say, hey, do you approve of this rate for their commissions? So that's an approval. Approve, reject, or change the number, change the percentage. Could be the outcomes there. But with the assign a task, we want to assign a task to IT to get a laptop out of storage, or get them a phone number assigned, or get them, their desk cleaned up or set up for them. So those are tasks, those are things, and the IT can come back and say, yep, done, done, done. And at that point in time, you're ready to onboard that employee, bring them in, and actually have that set up. With the commissions, you want to have that be approved or rejected, because that needs a little bit more of a process. You need input back from the user on what it is that they may like or not like about it, and you want to run that through an approval process. So that's a very high level overview of why you would want to use it, but the use cases are endless in what you would use, either assign a task or the express approval action. I hope this video has been very helpful in going through the showdown between both features, why you will want to use them, how to set them up and configure them, and then when to use them. Use them when you need either a response from a user, use the express approval, and you give them one or more outcomes to actually choose. With the assign a task, you don't need a response, you just need a check or a completion, and that's when you use the assign a task. The logic is there, is to drag and drop right into the canvas. If you get it wrong, simply drag the other one on and configure it accordingly. You can copy and paste and use variables as you need to make it as dynamic as possible. Both actions are really good. Both actions can be used in the same workflow. They can be used in the same process step as well, sequentially or parallel. So it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But I hope this video has been helpful to you on the feature showdown between the assign a task and express approval. If you have any questions, feel free to write them below this video, or go to the YouTube channel and subscribe for more videos like this and other videos on features that are available inside of the Nintex platform. My name's Eric. I'm really glad to bring you these videos each and every week as we continue to become experts and do more with the Nintex platform. I hope you have a good day. Double G.